Hey, folks. Um, we're closing in on primary day next Tuesday. Make sure you vote if you haven't already voted via mail in voting. And I want to talk to you specifically right now about one particular race, which I think is, from, from a primary challenge standpoint, the single most important race in the state of Pennsylvania for all conservatives. And that's the race down in the Lancaster area between Brian Cutler and Dave Nisley, who is the challenger. So Brian Cutler is the incumbent Republican sitting in that seat, and Dave Nisley is the extremely, extremely impressive challenger taking on Brian. So look, what happens in all over the state, and this happens all over the country, is we get these guys who are incumbents who settle into these seats, and they claim to be, they claim to be down home, and they claim to be all about the common man and woman, and they're on your side and all that. And they're complete sellouts, and they're the definition of the problem. And they just sell their souls and betray their constituents. And yes, I'm talking about Brian Cutler. And then we get to the point of the challenge and the actual primary, and we get a quality guy running. And of course, out of the ooze, out of the swamp, out of the Black Lagoon, crawl all the creatures to bring money and support to this reprehensible incumbent. And we come down to election day, and they're the folks who've sold their souls who are going to side with Cutler. They're the folks who are really passionate and have been involved in the fight for a long time who are going to side with Nisley. And then we got the decision being left up to a bunch of people in the middle who, they got other stuff to do, right? They're trying to fix the truck and get it back on the road, and the washing machine's on the fritz, and they're dealing with kids' sports and, life. And they don't have all day to spend playing inside baseball with politics. And you get a barrage of garbage, of just lies that come out in support of the incumbent. And unfortunately, a lot of people believe it and get swayed by it. In other words, it comes down to crunch time. And after all this discussion and all this gnashing of teeth, it's time. Are we going to do this or not? Are we going to actually strike a blow for liberty or not? Okay. If you want to boil all of that down to like the ultimate example of that, that's this challenge. Dave Nisley is rock solid, true conservative, but also a common sense guy from his community. I want to talk about, talk all day about representing your community. Well, this guy is that, who has dedicated a huge amount of his own money and immense quantities of his own time to trying to go out and do the right thing. Not because he thinks he's going to get rich out of it, or he really needed this to complete his life, but because he believes passionately in making a positive difference for the community. And he's face to face with a guy who, if you wanted a definition of the swamp creature, that would be Cutler. So let's focus on this, and let's just, tune out some of the nonsense and the noise and the lies, and let's just talk about reality. Cutler all day long will post pictures of him out trout fishing somewhere, wearing a flannel shirt, or acting like he's just one of you. I don't know if he ever believed in what he was doing when he first went to Harrisburg. I know that every indication I've seen out of this guy, and this has been true for years, is, look, if you called central casting and said, bring me a completely corrupt politician who sold out his constituents, this is the boy they would send down. Everybody's fired up about elections. Nobody, Democrat or Republican, trusts electoral results anymore. This is a crisis. This is a massive deal. In Pennsylvania, we have mail-in voting because of Act 77. Cutler is one of the architects of that. He's the guy who pushed this through the legislature. And here's the God's honest truth about why they did it. Going into the 2020 election, the Republican establishment believed that Donald Trump was a liability. Let me say that again. They believed Trump was a problem. They wanted to cut themselves away from him. because they were afraid he was going to drag down their down ballot candidates. And at that time, Pennsylvania had straight ticket voting. So you could go in and just vote all Dems, all Republicans. And these establishment folks who are so totally out of touch with reality in their own base believed that people were going to go into the voting booth and vote all Dems just as a way of voting against Trump. In other words, they desperately wanted to get rid of straight ticket voting and make you have to go office by office because they believed Trump was a problem. So they made a backroom deal with the Democratic Party. This isn't Sam's opinion. This is fact. I've had this conversation with the guys who did this, and they've admitted it and said that they would do it again tomorrow. They made a backroom deal with the Dems. If the Dems would agree to get rid of straight ticket voting, which they always wanted for places like Philly, the Republican Party would give the Democrats mail-in voting, which the Democrats had always wanted because it opens Pandora's box, and Republicans had always opposed. So the Republican leadership gave the Democrats mail-in voting as part of a deal designed to cut themselves away from the sitting Republican president of the United States. Let that sink in. This was a move at its heart against Donald Trump, and Brian Cutler, not just part of the group that came up with that plan, but then part of the group that went around and effectively ordered all the Republican legislators, reps, and senators to vote for this monstrosity. Because at that point, the Republican Party controlled both houses. So Cutler, at the heart of creating all of these problems with mail-in voting and everything that came after that, all of the ensuing damage, literally opening Pandora's box and setting loose all of these problems that have destroyed public confidence in elections and created a crisis in the state. He did that. He made it happen, and he hasn't done one blessed thing since to fix any of it. When in the aftermath of the 2020 election, there was an uprising, peaceful, lawful uprising across the state from people saying, whoa, buddy, what just happened? Because this smells to high heaven. Cutler's position was to provide no support to that and to support no efforts to investigate what had happened. Just nothing to see here, guys. So he created the problem, and then he wouldn't take ownership of the problem and lift a finger to fix it. And when people were outraged and started demonstrating and pressuring him, he then whined and complained that he was being unfairly abused. Claimed that all of these radical, horrible people were doing something. People who were peacefully protesting and saying, hey, Brian, you created a problem. Why don't you own it and do something to fix it? He was outraged that you had the audacity to call him. This is not an aberration, man. This is another day at the office for this guy. I mean, are you kidding me? This is the guy who not so long ago in the House, when the Republicans still had the majority in the House and they had to select a new speaker, the Republicans went into caucus, which is when by party they go behind closed doors to decide, okay, we got to nominate a speaker. I mean, they do this for lots of issues, but in this case, specifically, the whole point was who's going to be our guy we put forward to be speaker. We've got the majority. We can install our guy. There was an express agreement in that caucus to support a state rep from out in Westmoreland County. Cutler participated in all those discussions, acted like he was on board with that. They walked out on the floor of the House to vote, and Cutler, with 17 other Republican turncoats, walked across the aisle, voted with the Democrats, and installed a Democratic Speaker of the House. They not only made a backroom deal with the Dems, the details of which were still done now, but in effect lied to the faces of all the other Republicans in the House, because they walked out onto the House floor thinking we are all in agreement, we're going to support this guy from Westmoreland, and then literally are stabbed in the back on the House floor, and they all become aware of what Cutler's done as it is happening. Again, not Sam's conspiracy theory. God knows how many of them we've talked to at this point who have told us. I walked out on the floor. I thought we were voting for our guy from Westmoreland. Boom, all of a sudden, Brian Cutler and 17 other guys side with the Dems, install a Democratic Speaker, who, by the way, then immediately locked out the House, claiming that he had to come up with rules for the session, and that was going to take a long time, and shut down the House of Representatives until Democrats, until a couple of special elections were concluded. And when he reconvened, the Democrats then had the majority. There was a whole bunch of very critical legislation that the Republican Party had the chance to pass while they still had the majority. And Cutler's deal killed that. All of this total betrayal, total sabotage. Look, I could go on like this all day long. The point is, if you're looking for the poster child for the swamp, if you're looking for the guy who is the ultimate creature from the Black Lagoon, that's Brian Cutler. So you need to show up if you're in this district on election day, and you need to send a signal. First of all, you need to vote for Dave Nisley, who is a real quality guy, and this will shake you up, actually means what he says and has integrity. And you need to send a really, really, really loud signal to Cutler and his like. Time to start cleaning out your desk. We won't take it anymore. Thanks, guys. Talk to you very soon.